Welcome to today's class. It is the BSOC 101 class. I welcome to all the learners and I welcome to the academic council. And I just request to ma'am to start his presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Lata. So, in our today's session, we'll discuss on Unit 11 of BSOC 101. In Unit 11, we will discuss the status and role. In between status and role, we will discuss the concept of status and its relation to roles, as well as differentiation between the types of status. Also we'll discuss the concept of role as well as classification of roles, and we will also discuss different dimensions of roles. So let us have a look on what is this unit of status and role describes. I will show you what is this status and role. So in this unit, we will seek to introduce the concept of status and role, which are important aspects of the social structure of any society. Whatever the society it may be, the importance of status and role is obviously present in that society. So it discusses the roles in both the simple and complex societies and different dimensions of roles, such as role set, multiple roles, role signs, as well as role conflict. So although status and role has been discussed separately in the unit, the relationship between the two will be drawn recurrently. So first we will discuss what is the concept of status. In simple terms, status is a position which is occupied by a person in the society. Generally, status is defined as a position. Status is a position which is occupied by a person in the society. So it is a lifetime, we can say in a lifetime of an individual occupies different statuses on the lines of age status, gender status, class status, occupation status, as well as educational status. So a person can have several statuses at a point of time. ଗୋଟେ ଲୋକର ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାରର status ର ମାନେ typology ରହିଛି ଯଦି ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା, such as being a daughter, being a social worker, being a member of a book reading club, or and a manager in a company. So a combination of all the statuses that a person holds is called status set. So status set ame kahaku kahilu na, it is a combination of all the statuses that a person holds is called status set. According to Linton in 1936, he defined status as a collection of rights and duties. Status generally denoted as a collection of rights and duties. आमर कर्तव्य और अधिकार को लेके जोटा आमर डिफाइन करा जाय थाए, सोसाइटी रे असाइन्ड रोल्स दिया जाय थाए, that is denoted as our status, but that is designated as our status. So each status has certain behavioral expectations attached to it, which we call social roles. तामाने आमे प्रत्येक स्टेटस सहित किछि बिहेवियरल एक्सपेक्टेशंस रहिछि, which we all have to follow that behavioral expectations, or we all have to obey that behavioral expectations attached to that particular status. In that particular status, which has certain behavioral expectations, we call it as social roles. So social roles is the behavioral expectations of a status is generally denoted as a social role. So drawing the relationship between status and role, again Linton writes that a role represents the dynamic aspect of status. आमे जदि कहिबा role काहाकु कहा जाउची ना, a role is the dynamic aspect of status. When an individual puts the rights and duties which constitute a status into effect, it is he is performing a role. जेतेबेले गोटे लोक बा गोटे ह्यूमन बीइंग जेतेबेले puts his rights and duties, तार निजर अधिकार और कर्तव्य को in that particular status, into an effective manner or into a we can say in a well defined manner ଯେତେବେଳେ rights and duties କୁ well defined manner ରେ ଗୋଟେ individual fulfill କରିବାରେ ସକ୍ଷମ ହେଇପାରୁଛି, that is he is performing a role in a society. So therefore statuses are occupied and roles are played. We can say that status is a defined position which is occupied and roles are played. Generally, we are playing the roles in our everyday life. We are playing the roles of different statuses. So, social status and social roles are important concepts in understanding how social life is organized and activities are distributed. So, ଆମେ ଯଦି ଦେଖିବା social status ଆଉ social roles ହେଉଛି ଦୁଇଟା important concept in understanding how social life is organized. ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନ ଶୈଳୀଟାକୁ ଆମର ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜଡ ୱେରେ ନେବା ପାଇଁ ବା ଆକ୍ଟିଭିଟିଜ ଗୁଡା ଆମେ ଯାହା କରୁଛୁ ଇକ୍ୱାଲି ଡିଷ୍ଟ୍ରିବ୍ୟୁଟେଡ କରିବା ପାଇଁ we need the importance of status and role in our society. So while ideally the term status refers simply to the positions, so status it is simply ଆଉ କିଛି କହିବା ଆଗରୁ we all have very clear notion about it that it refers simply to the positions occupied by an individual in a society. ଗୋଟେ ସମାଜରେ ଯୋଉ individual ଯୋଉ position ଟା occupy करे society ରେ societal position is denoted as his status, his or her status. So whether of a man or a woman, lawyer or shopkeeper, brahmin or dalit, we often attach a sense of high and low with statuses in our common everyday uses. So the status classifications are based upon where we live, what we do, what we eat, who do we mix up, and the kinds of schools and institutions we attend, which social category we belong to, and so on. तामाने status classifications काहाकु नेकी करा जाउची ना status classifications are generally based upon where we live, आमे कोठी रहुचु, what we do, आमे कोन करूचु, what we eat, आमे कोन खाइलु, आमे काहा संगे मिसिलु, आमे को स्कूल जॉइन करिचु, को इंस्टीट्यूशन में बिलोंग करूचु. So these are the certain things from where these are the basis, or we can say these are the status classifications where the status is based on. So therefore status is also a basis of social stratification, and individuals not just occupy a position but these positions are also placed in a hierarchy. तामाने आमे जदि कहिबा खाली गोटे इंडिविजुअल गोटे पोजीशन ता ऑक्युपाई करूनी स्टेटस रे, but these positions are also placed in a hierarchy. Hierarchy माने गोटे ladder form रे high ladder, low ladder, middle ladder, hierarchical gradation of status is also there. So for example, one occupation is not merely different from another in division of labor but also ranked in terms of prestige and differentially rewarded. So sociologists like Max Weber define status as positive or negative social estimation of honor. आमे जदि कहिबा status Weber define करूचंती को रे ना, according to Weber status as the positive or negative social estimation of honor and related to it the style of life. That lifestyles are symbolized by housing, clothing, language spoken, manners of speech and occupation. आमे जो lifestyle ता को हिसाब रे symbolize करूछु से lifestyle जहाँ में in our day to day life रे जो lifestyle हमें maintain करूछु, that is symbolized by our housing pattern, by our clothing pattern, or we can say our language we speak in our in our daily basis, and also the manners of speech and occupation. So this is why in everyday life, having a luxury car or living in an affluent neighborhood is seen as a symbol of a person's status. So गोटे लोकर status को हिसाब रे देखा जाउची जदि हम everyday life if we have a luxury car or living in an affluent neighborhood, it is just a symbol of a person's status. These are the symbolic emblem of a person's status. While status normally seems to be determined by a person's income or wealth, जदि वो status टा normally खाली गोटे person रा income or wealth ऊपर depend करूची, but Weber argued that class and status may not always overlap. तामाने status can be an independent basis of social stratification. Thus, both the Propertied class and propertyless class can belong to the same status group. वेबर का हिसाब रे स्टेटस कैन बी एन इंडिपेंडेंट बेसिस ऑफ सोशल स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन आमे खाली वेल्थ टर्म रे ताकू आमे जो इनकम टर्म रे आमे ताकू जस्टिफाई करूनु इट कैन आल्सो बी एन इंडिपेंडेंट बेसिस ऑफ सोशल स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन. So both are we can see it in a proper jahar pakhare property or wealth adhika achi that they are also belongs to a class, and also property less can belong to the same status group रे भी हमें किसी देखिबा पई पाउछु. So just as status is hierarchically arranged हमें गोटे जिंस एठी फाइंड आउट करूछु कोन status is hierarchically arranged positively or negatively valued. Each status has privilege or disprivilege attached to it. प्रत्येक status रे positive जिंस रहिछि negative जिंस रे भी value करा जाउछि, and each status has certain privilege advantages किछि रहिछि disadvantages भी हमें किछि तादर रहिछि, and it is all the statuses we can say these are the hierarchically arranged. So having the status of a Dalit or former untouchable in India, for instance, prevented the individual from having access to public wealth, sharing food with other castes, or marrying someone from an upper caste family. Similarly, in the United States of America, being a black became a basis for denial of rights to employment and segregation in schools, housing, and public places. तामाने हमने देखिछु हमर माने जे देखिबा अनटचेबल्स इंडिया रो कंडीशन अनटचेबल्स मानकर माने prevented from the individual from having the access to public wealth तांको public wealth public कण places sharing food सेगुडा सब अलाउ करा जाओ नथिला बा अलाउ करा जाए नाही to some extent to certain parts of India too. So that means status has certain positive value functions or negative value functions, or it has certain advantages and disadvantages which we see in our in certain examples of status. So however, honor or prestige assigned to status is not unchanging. जोटा तमरा status रे जो assigned prestige or honor दिया जाता है सेटा is not unchanging. For example, societies where being a women, disabled, black or untouchable was considered inferior or stigmatized. These statuses and their roles are now positively seen owing to the struggles for rights and dignity that have been fought for years. That means, therefore, both the statuses and roles are dynamic and keep on changing. So, status and role both are dynamic and it keeps on changing. So, Linton has classified the statuses. We will discuss the classification of status. First classification given by Linton in 1936. He distinguished statuses into two types. One is ascribed status, another one is achieved status. So what is ascribed status? Now these ascribed statuses are those which are assigned to individuals without reference to their innate differences or ability. That means it comes to an individual, or we can say it birth of an individual in a particular social category, such as যদি ଆମେ ଯୋଉଠି ଆମେ ଜନ୍ମ ଗ୍ରହଣ କରୁଛୁ, that means in a particular social category birth of a such as any class, any caste also become a criteria of ascription of status in several but not all societies. That means it is ascribed means it is universally used criteria for ascription of status. Universally ascribed criteria means it's a fixed criteria. That means status which we have our age, our sex, our kinship, our race, or these are the we can say these are the birth basis criteria. जो birth basis रे जो criteria status टा में adhere करिथाओ that is denoted as our ascribed status. Then coming to what is achieved status. Now, achieved status are those that are left open, and generally ascribed status is closed, but fixed status बोली हमें ताको कहूची. So here achieved status are those that are left open to be filled through competition and individual effort. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ competition basis ରେ ଆମର effort basis ରେ ଆମେ ଯୋଉ status ଟା society ରେ gain କରୁ ତାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ achieved status. The name itself suggests that achieved status, the status which we achieve through our competition, through our skill, through our effort, whatever the status we gained in our in the society, that is denoted as achieved status. So these are acquired over an individual's lifetime. Occupation and education are thus called achieved status. So occupation को और education को हमें कहूँ कौन, these are the achieved status. Marital status of a wife or husband are also achieved status. So एठी हमें achieved status रो example जदि नबा, that is a marital status of a wife or husband that are designed as an example of a achieved status. So, however, the line distinguishing between the two, that is the achieved and ascribed, are not as clear as they seem. For example, although the ascribed status seems fixed by birth, but they are not immutable. Some people also undergo sex change later in life. So, ଆମେ ଏଇଟା ବି ଦେଖୁଛୁ ଯଦିଓ ଏଟା fixed by birth କରାଯାଇଛି, but still some people are also undergo the gender change भी বা sex change ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ in later life ରେ ଦେଖିବା ପାଇଁ ବି ମିଳୁଛି. So for a long time gender was generally categorized, that is male and female. However, now a third broad category of transgender, which includes homosexuals, transsexuals, is also recognized in many parts of the as an outcome of struggle for recognition. So furthermore, it is difficult to put strictly class or for that matter that caste also in either of the two categories of ascribed and achieved. It is also necessary to ask if all achieved statuses are entirely merit based, or does ascribed status of being a white or male or upper caste can also influence the acquisition of status. तामाने एटा भी गोटे question जे it is also necessary to ask that if all the achieved statuses are entirely on merit basis रे कोन सब जंक achieved status हमें पाउछु की. So these are the things, that means according to हमें देखिलु एठी Ralph Linton, status is categorized as ascribed and achieved status. Ascribed status which we get by birth, and active status which we get by our individual competition, effort, skill. These are denoted as your active status. So let us have a look on what is master status. Master status means what? Now in every society there is always one status. प्रत्येक समाज रे गोटे status, गोटे particular status थाए that tends to overshadow all other statuses or is given more importance by others. तामाने एक गोटिए status को हमें देखु जोथरे कि always have an importance. Master status ही हमें तर ना ही रखु master status, that means it is always given more importance by others. This is called as master status. Gender, race, and caste, for instance, often become master statuses in highly stratified societies. जमे जो highly stratified societies देखिबा ताले gender, race, and caste, these are the master statuses which is found in highly stratified societies. Conflict sociologists often engage with ascribed statuses of gender and race, as they argue that these often shape the individual's life chances, including income, occupation, education, social networks, and so on. So similarly, mental or physical disability can also become a master status and govern the everyday behavior of the society towards the disabled. That means it shows that how disability can become a master status. तामाने हमें एठी importance एठी हमें गोटे example नबा जेमते does the new act for the disabled represent the needs of different abled women? Both we can take an example. Both X and Y have won medals for India. दी जण ଗୋଟେ India representative କରୁଥିଲେ and they both get the medals. But the similarities between the two probably end there. Wheelchair bound for ex wife of an army officer and mother of two made India proud with her silver medal in shot put at the 2060 Paralympics. ଆମେ ଯଦି କିଛି ଏଠି ଗୋଟେ ନଉଛୁ. So the first ever Paralympic medal by an Indian woman while Sakshi with a bronze win the Rio Olympics became the first Indian women wrestler to win a medal at the Olympics. But whereas Saxi's Olympic feat made her a household name, Deepa says that though the Indian government and their own states treated the para athletes, the able-bodied athletes got more attention from across the country and corporates looking to sign endorsement deals. तामाने एठी हमें गोटे जिनस फाइंड आउट करूछु जे मेंटल एंड फिजिकल डिसेबिलिटी कैन आल्सो बिकम अ मास्टर स्टेटस and govern the everyday behavior of the society towards the disabled. So conflict sociologists जेमती first हमको देखेले often engage with the ascribed statuses of gender and race as they argue that these often shape the individual's life chances, including income, occupation, education, social networks, and so on. So, generally, master status is something which is given more importance by others. Importance the name itself suggests that it is denoted as a master status. So, let us have a look on the concept of role. What is role? Think about how our each day begins with playing different roles. आमे जब प्रत्येक आमर दिनचर्या आरंभ करिबा ताले आमे देखुचे आमर each day begins with playing different roles attached to different statuses. विभिन्न स्टेटस सहित रोल टा अटैच हेकि रहिछि आ आमे सेही अनुसार ही सोसाइटी रे रोल प्ले करूचे अकॉर्डिंग टू आवर स्टेटसेस. Just as there are multiple statuses जेहेतु आमर आमे प्ले आमे assigned position अछि आमर different बा multiple statuses, there are roles associated with each one of them. प्रत्येक status सहित किछि रोल अलग अलग रहिछि बा assigned roles प्रत्येक status पई कि रहिछि. So women for instance plays the role of daughter, sister, student, private tutor, a friend and so on. आमे जे देखुछि गोटे women से एक भलिया different role of daughter role play करूछि and also student and including a tutor, a friend and so on. एमति बहुत प्रकार रोल से सोसाइटी रे प्ले करूछि. So एटा को हिसाब रे प्ले होछि ना according to their status जदि justify करूछि as a daughter and she is bound to play the role of a daughter, and status जदि justify करूछि as a student, she is bound to play the role of a student. So roles are socially defined expectations that a person in a given status follows. So these are the socially defined expectations. आम जो सामाजिक प्रणाली हिसाब रे आम जो expectations रही आमे ताको फुलफिल करि पार जो जेते जो मात्रा रे आमे फुलफिल करू according to our roles. So it is a socially defined expectation that a person in a given status follows. For example, when there is traffic congestion, we expect the traffic police to manage the traffic. जेतेबेले traffic congestion देखा जाउछि सेठी हमें कोन देखुछि traffic police को हमें expect करूछु से आसे सब manage करू बोली. So and the easy flow of the vehicle. Similarly, at a restaurant, the customers expect the waiters to provide the menu, note down the orders, and serve the food. So these are the assigned roles, but the socially defined expectations that a person in a given status has to follow. So roles help in maintaining some kind of social order and predictability in interactions. Roles hochi kona na it helps in maintaining some kind of social order. Roles generally helps us in maintaining some kind of social order and predictability in interaction. Roles as a cluster of behavior and attitudes, and argues that roles help in organizing social behavior both at individual and collective level. ଆମେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଭିଜୁଆଲ ଲେଭେଲରୁ ବି ଆଉ କଲେକ୍ଟିଭ ଲେଭେଲରୁ ବି ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାରର ରୋଲ ହେଲ୍ପ କରୁଛି in organizing our social behavior. So roles are a cluster of rights and obligations, and what is one individual's obligation is his or her partner's right. So in a restaurant, a waiter is obliged to serve and the customer has the right to be served. ଆମେ ଏଠି କ'ଣ ଦେଖୁଛୁ restaurant ରେ waiter role ହେଉଛି he is obliged to serve the customers and the customers has the right to be served. So in this way the concept of role provides one of the available means for studying the elements of cooperation. So according to, let us have a distinction between the, according to Newcomb, Newcomb has distinguished between expected behavior and actual behavior of an individual. What is expected behavior and what is actual behavior? The expected behavior is one which an individual is expected to perform as per the status. आम status हिसाब रे हमको जो रोल प्ले करबा पई सोसाइटी दिया जाय थाए ताको हमें कहूछु expected roles. That means an individual has to perform the role according to our status. And roles assigned to him or her. But actual behavior is what? Now the actual behavior of person may be different from expected behavior. It is defined in the distinction at the actual behavior can be related with role cognition. What is role cognition? Role cognition means individuals own ideas of what is appropriate. मु कहिबी मो पई कोटा appropriate role मु सही हिसाब रे actual behavior play करूची बुझी परछ. That means it is denoted as role cognition. Individuals own ideas of what is appropriate, or we can say second category expectations to other people's idea about what he will do or not. अलगा मानकर opinion कोन ता सही हिसाब रे मु मोर बिहेवियर टा प्ले करूची बा रोल टा प्ले करूची. Or we can say norms to other people's ideas about what he should do. से कोन करिबा उचित बा गोटे लोक कोन करिबा उचित से हिसाब रे जते बेले अलगा मानकर आइडियाज को नै कि रोल जस्टिफाई करा जाउची बिहेवियर जस्टिफाई करा सोसाइटी रे. So that actual behavior consists of key things: role recognition, role expectations, as well as norms. So we can take an example. Role of a chef occupies the status of a head chef in the hotel. As a chef, he is expected to play the role of overall supervision and coordination with cooks who have to prepare the meals. Apart from this, some general expectations from him include ensuring discipline and maintenance of hygiene standards in a regular work environment of the kitchen. So this is called the actual behavior and expected behavior. So let us have a look on role learning. What is role learning? Role learning begins at a young age. Role learning start is a young age when children start observing how people in their surroundings behave. गोटे छोटो पिलाटा फास्ट टू लर्न करे जेते बेले begins to learn in an young age रे when children start observing how people in their surrounding environment रे बता surrounding रे लोक माने केमिति बिहेव करूछन. So accordingly towards को हिसाब रे बिहेवियर समस्त परस्पर प्रति अछि से हिसाब रे से रोल टा लर्न करूछि सोसाइटी. In fact, children often engage in role playing games. ଆମେ ଦେଖିଥିବୁ role playing games ବି children छोट माने play करନ୍ତି where they enact the role of a mother, either केतेबेले mother role play କରିବାକୁ ଭଲ ପାଆନ୍ତି or father or a teacher. So individuals also have role models in their lives whose certain patterns of behavior is incorporated in one's own behavior. That means a role model can be a person in the family. Role model may be gote family ro gote chua pai gote role model ke gote family members vitru heitire, and he or she always want to play that particular role of their father huantu mother huantu. तो तांकर गोटे पर्टिकुलर रोल प्ले करिबा पई से भलो पाउतबो and it may be considered first ଆମେ family ରୁ ଦେଖୁ then neighborhood ରୁ ଦେଖୁ then school ରୁ also ଗୋଟେ ଛୁଆ ମାନେ learn କରିଥାଏ and or even some distant only unrelated persons whom we have seen in the social media ଆମେ ଯାହାକୁ ବି social media ରେ ଦେଖୁ sometimes we are also playing that patterns of role ତାଙ୍କ ହିସାବରେ ହିଁ ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କ ଅନୁକରଣ କରୁ ବା ରୋଲ ଟା ଲର୍ନ କରି ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କରି ରୋଲ ଟା ପ୍ଲେ କରୁ so in our daily life we smoothly switch from one role to another without much effort and also play distinct roles at the same time. So, how one behaves as a daughter is different from how one behaves as a friend. ଜଣେ କେମିତି ଗୋଟେ ଡଟର ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରୁଛି ସେଟା ନିହାତି ଭାବରେ ଅଲଗା ରହିବ how one behaves as a friend. So similarly, social situations also defines roles we play. ସବୁବେଳେ social situations ଟା ହିଁ define କରୁଛି what type of role we will play in a society. So, how we behave in a formal setup of workplace is different from how we behave at home. ଆମେ ଘରେ ଯୋଉ ଭଳିଆ ରୋଲ ଟା ପ୍ଲେ କରୁଛୁ ୱାର୍କ ପ୍ଲେସ ରେ ବା ଅଫିସ ରେ ଆମର ରୋଲ ଟା ନିହାତି ଭାବରେ କିଛି ଡିଫରେଣ୍ଟ ରହୁଛି so however to say that everyone conforms to the socially laid expectations will be not be true. Individuals in their everyday lives are also constantly negotiating and redefining the roles they play. ସବୁବେଳେ ଯୋଉ ରୋଲ ଗୁଡା individual play କରନ୍ତି always redefine the roles they play. Roles assigned to a particular status are also challenged. ଯୋଉ ରୋଲ ଗୁଡା assign କରାଯାଉଛି ଗୋଟେ particular status ପାଇଁ ସବୁବେଳେ challenge କରିଦେ ଥାଏ. For example, in India, historically, women were expected to perform the domestic roles. ଆମେ ଜାଣିଛୁ ମହିଳା ମାନଙ୍କର ସବୁବେଳେ ଘର କାମ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଗୋଟେ assigned expected roles ତାଙ୍କର ସେଇଟା ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ଠାରୁ ରୁହେ and confined largely to the private spheres of home. ସବୁବେଳେ ଘରର ଚାରିକାନ୍ଥ ଭିତରେ ରହିବା ପାଇଁ କି ତାଙ୍କ ରୋଲ expectation ଟା ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କର ସେଇଟା ଥାଏ. However, women are now taking up roles that were traditionally expected of men, particularly in urban India. ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଏଥିରେ women are taking up the roles that were traditionally expected of men. And it is important to keep in mind that social changes are slow and may take several years and sometimes even concerted struggles. ତାମାନେ ଆମେ ଏଠି social change ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ ଆମର କଣ it is important to keep in mind that social changes are slow. Changes all of a sudden ଆମେ ଆଣିପାରୁ ନାହୁଁ. So social changes are always slow and it may take several years and sometimes even struggles ବି ସେଥିପାଇଁ କିଛି ଦରକାର ପଡେ. ଯୋଉ womenଙ୍କର domestic roles ଟା assigned traditionally ଯୋଉଟା ଥିଲା ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ urban Indiaରେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ modern society ରେ industrial society ରେ ଆମେ ଯୋଉ changes ଆଣିପାରିଛୁ এটা ଗୋଟେ ରାତିରେ possible ହେଇନାହିଁ. So ସେ changes are definitely very slow and it will take several years. So let us have a look on role theory. What is the role theory in sociology? Role theory in sociology, first theory we will discuss on structural and interactionist approach. So understanding of roles has been approached in two different ways. Theta different ways re understanding of roles ta approach kara jauchi or from two school of thought where we can say here we will discuss the two school of theta school of thought in understanding the role theory. The structuralist one school of thought is structuralist, another one is interactionist. So let us have a first look on structuralist role theories. The structuralists include structuralist mane ko mane rahile Linton, Batton, Parsons and Morton. So structuralists generally view roles as norms and expectations associated with statuses in the social structure where individuals are socialized into role taking. That means the more perfectly the members of any society are adjusted to their statuses and roles, the more smoothly the society will function. जो हिसाब रे जदि भल भाबरे societal roles रे हमें adjust करि परिबा ଆଉ societal roles ରେ ଆମେ perfectly play କରିପାରିବା, smoothly play କରିପାରିବା, then the societal roles are more smoothly the society will function the roles. So this is the approach of structuralist opinion. This way, the functionalists also assume the consensus part of the individual. So, what are the interactionist approach? Interactionist, social interactionists like Mead, Turner, they were of the opinion that they argue that the individual, though bound by the structure, individual jadio bound by the structure and its given expectations, interpret and evaluate their roles and engage in negotiation. For interactionists, there is a creative process of role making rather than just unquestioning internalization of given expectations. खाली हमें एटी इंटरैक्शनिस्ट कहउचंती दिस इज अ क्रिएटिव प्रोसेस ऑफ रोल मेकिंग rather than just on questioning internalization of given expectations. तामाने individuals जदियो bound by the structure and its given expectation structure द्वारा जदियो बांधी कि अछि आ तार expectations द्वारा भी से fulfill करिवा पई कि ताको bound अछि expectations to interpret and evaluate their roles and engage in negotiation, but still there is a role making rather than in on questioning the internalization of given expectations. These are the approach of interactionist approach. Let us have a look on classification of roles. Classification of roles again we will discuss on ascribed and achieved, as like ascribed status, ascribed roles, ଯେମିତି ascribed status ଆମେ ପଢିଥିଲୁ ସେମିତି ascribed roles ସେଠି କ'ଣ ଅଛି ନା ascribed roles କହୁଛି are the one that are given at birth. Ascribed roles generally given at birth. From the time an individual is born, role learnings are role learnings begins, which is a part of what we know as socialization. Socialization ରୁ ଆମେ start करू role learn करबाटा at the time an individual is born. These roles pertain to one's sex, age, kinship, caste, class and so on. So एटा को हमें कहूछु ascribed status. Ascribed status रो जो role टा हमें play करूछु that is denoted as ascribed role, that are the one with that are given at birth. By birth to हमें जोटा पाउछु that is denoted as your ascribed role. Then active role similar like active status भलिया जेमती the active roles on the other hand are the one that are largely acquired over a lifetime on the basis of merit, such as occupational roles of a farmer, salesperson, banker, shopkeeper, driver, lawyer, or any profession or etc. Any category हमें जो देखिबा, so these are the active roles. ताको हमें कौन कहूछु सेमाने active role play करूछन्ते like the active status of a society. So let us have a look on relational and non-relational roles. What is relational role? What is non-relational role? Relational role कहले there are certain roles which are complementary in nature. Complementary in nature and are conceived of and defined in relation to one another. That means relation basis. ଆମେ relational कहूଛୁ ना relational role. That means certain roles which are complementary in nature and are conceived of and defined in relation to one another. One good example of relational role is that is a wife which cannot be conceived of without the husband. ଯେମିତି କି ଗୋଟେ example नबा the relational role ରେ ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଛୁ wife ର role ଟା ସେତେବେଳେ justify ହବ ଯେତେବେଳେ husband ଟାକୁ ଆମେ ଦେଖେଇବୁ and he is denoted as his wife. ସେଇ ହିସାବରେ ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ relation ହିସାବରେ और according similarly ଯଦି ଆମେ wife ଟାକୁ ଦେଖଉଛୁ husband को भी देखौଛୁ her husband. That means it is a relational role is that of a wife which cannot be conceived without the husband. Husband बिना the wife रो relational role टा हमें देखै परिबा नाही. Similarly, the role of a debtor cannot exist the role of a creditor. बुझियोछि. So this is denoted as a relational role. Non-relational role कौन? The non-relational roles on the other hand are not dependent or complementary. Non-relational role टा dependent नुहे, are not dependent or complementary, such as the role of a musician ho, role of a researcher ho, role of a painter ho. So they are not dependent. ଆମେ ଯେମିତି କି ଏଠି relational ରେ ଦେଖେଇଲି wife ର husband ର value କୁ ନେଇକି ଆମେ wife କୁ justify କରାଯାଉଛି ବା relational role ଟା ଆମେ ଦେଖଉଛୁ, କିନ୍ତୁ here they are not dependent or complementary, like we can play the role of a musician ho, role of a researcher ho, role of a painter ho. So age and sex roles largely fall in this category. Generally non-relational role, age and sex roles fall in this category of non-relational roles, whereas kinship roles can be classified as relational role. रिलेशनल रोल रे आमे किनशिप रोल टाकू नबा, किंतु नॉन रिलेशनल रोल रे जब आमे नउछु एज एंड सेक्स रोल जनरली फॉल्स इन दिस कैटेगरी ऑफ नॉन रिलेशनल रोल. So look on basic role, general role and independent role. What is basic role? Basic roles, this was developed by Banton. Banton developed the scale giving the comparison of the extent to which particular roles are independent of other roles. So first ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା basic role କ'ଣ? Basic roles are mostly determined by sex and age, ascribed to individuals at birth, and these roles shape conduct in a large number of social contexts. That is denoted as basic roles. What is general role? The general roles are mostly assigned on the basis of merit of the individual. General role ta generally assigned karuchi as the on the basis of merit of the individual. Independent role kona? Independent roles are determined by merit. General role assigned कराउची merit of the individual. Independent role कराउची determined by merit and have very less implications for other roles and on the way people respond to the person who occupies the independent roles. Examples of independent roles are leisure roles and many occupational roles. Leisure roles, so occupational roles, so these are the independent roles. So, usually an individual's sex role shapes the individual's conduct and the response to others towards him or her more than any other role. So, occupational roles also shape the way people respond to an individual, particularly in workspace or social gatherings. The leisure roles are more independent and have limited influence outside of a particular setting, for example, golfer in a golf club. So placement of different roles in this scale will vary from one society to another. In primitive societies, for example, there were small number of highly undifferentiated basic roles linked to sex and age. But in advanced industrial societies, the importance of age and sex roles is limited and less. We see more independent roles in advanced societies. For example, in primitive societies, of Bosman role of a woman and was tied to her sex and she was restricted from taking up the roles that were assigned, that were defined for men. However, in modern times, women occupy more independent roles like a female manager or doctor, or where they were judged in the same way as men are. So ଏଠି ଆମେ ଦେଖିଲୁ different types or classifications of roles. So have a look on role system. Simple societies ର role system କ'ଣ? Complex societies ର କ'ଣ? Simple societies ର first ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା. In simple societies like ଆମେ ଯଦି ଦେଖିବା the roles are allocated based upon the natural differences. Roles allocated based on the natural differences like age difference, sex difference and kinship difference. So first तार केतरा criteria हमें find out करिबा. First criteria होची the division of roles on the basis of sex took place in the following manner. A man is responsible for hunting, preparing skins for clothing, making weapons, building fire, and sometimes helping the women in fetching wood and water. So the division of role on the basis of sex. एठी हम फास्ट देखिलु डिवीजन ऑफ रोल ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ सेक्स मैन रो असाइन रोल कोन मेल रो असाइन रोल्स कोन और फीमेल रो असाइन रोल्स कोन the wife on the other hand builds a shelter for her family takes care of children gathers and prepares food these are found in simple society and clean the house. Second criteria hochi the other basis of role allocation is age. A boy's passage into manhood is marked when he heals his first buck, and this passage is celebrated with rituals. That means thereafter he is allowed to marry. So in case of girls, she can be married when a boy, she can be married when a baby, but she takes the role of a wife and married women only when she matures physically. ता माने एठी हम एज मैटर करूची बॉय रो असाइंड रोल ता को हिसाब रे रहइबा और से गर्ल रो असाइंड रोल ता को हिसाब रे दैट इज जस्टिफाइड अकॉर्डिंग टू द एज और मैच्योरिटी. So elderly people are treated with respect and expect and experts on traditions, myths, and family lineage. So these are the two criteria. First sex basis re, then hochi age re. Third basis hochi kinship. Kinship re kono na mothers and fathers perform the important role of bringing up their children. When children grow up as adults, they have certain mutual obligations with their parents. Marriage between men and women can be dissolved, but as they rarely quarrel, divorce is rare. Marriages between close relations are avoided to keep kin ties clear. So third basis ame dekhuchu kinship. Kinship re kon hochi mothers and fathers perform the important roles of bringing up their children. So this is the assigned role criteria according to our in simple societies re ei criteria re roles ta ame dekhutulu. First hela sex, second hela age, third hela kinship. So let us have a look what are the role criteria in complex society. Complex society re ame ko pattern of role criteria dekhuchu. First hochi social strata. What is social strata? Now some societies are organized on the basis of ranks. Rank re organized करायची such as nobles, commoners, slaves, etc. People belonging to the same strata share a similar existence and have same privileges and duties towards the king. ଦେଖ ଏଠି କହୁଛି କିଛି ସୋସାଇଟି ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜ କରାଯାଇଛି ଅନ୍ ଦ ବେସିସ୍ ଅଫ rank ରେ strata basis ରେ ladder basis ରେ hierarchy basis ରେ ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜ କରାଯାଇଛି noble ଯେମିତି କି while this kind of social strata is more flexible than rigid role system of simple societies, social strata can become rigid and discriminatory to an extent where birth in a particular category influences the life chances of the individual. In such rigid system of stratification, living the category in which a person is born becomes very difficult. So it is strata अनुसार stratification में rank order करा जायछि किए को role टा societal ये play करिबा that is denoted under the social strata. तापर आसुची we can take an example जेमति कि the caste system in India. Caste system रे जो stratification strata करा जायछि hierarchy करा जायछि where a person is born in a particular caste is expected to adhere the caste specific norms. जे जो कास्ट रे जन्म ग्रहण करूचंदी सेही हिसाब रे तांकर कास्ट नॉर्म्स रूल्स उडा से माने कस्टम्स बा ऑक्युपेशंस को फॉलो अप करिवे एंड रूल्स ऑफ इंटरेक्शंस ऑफ अदर कास्ट. So while these norms are not as rigid as they used to be earlier, aguru jo bala rigid caste norms thila bartaman seita re changes asi jaychi due to continuous struggle and legal action. So caste based rules of interactions and roles still prevail in present day society. So first amara complex society dekhuchu social strata. Second one is diversification and specialization of tasks. अच्छा diversification और specialization of tasks कौन कहूची ना in complex societies tasks are distributed based on specialization and skill. जे जो थरे speciality ସ୍ପେସିଆଲ ଯୋଉଥିରେ ଅଛନ୍ତି ସେଇ ବା ସ୍କିଲ୍ ଯୋଉଥିରେ ଯିଏ ଦକ୍ଷ ତାଙ୍କୁ ସେଇ ହିସାବରେ କ୍ଲାସ ଗୁଡା ସରି କାମ ଗୁଡା ଆସାଇନ୍ କରାଯାଇଛି ୱାର୍କ from largest to even smallest of organization have role divisions. For example, ଯେମିତି ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ଯଦି ଦିଟା କଣ ତମର we can take an example ଯେମିତି Mira and her friend open a small bakery. Along with the two bakers, they hire two workers. ଯଦିଓ ସେମାନେ ଗୋଟେ ବେକରୀ ସପ୍ ଖୋଲିଲେ କିନ୍ତୁ ସେମାନେ ତାପରେ ବି ୱାର୍କର ମାନଙ୍କୁ ସେଠି ହାୟର କରୁଛନ୍ତି to attend the customers and one person to manage the accounts. ଜଣେ account manage କରୁଛି. When they decide to offer home delivery service, they hire another individual. ଯେତେବେଳେ home delivery ଦେବାକୁ ଚାହୁଁଛନ୍ତି ସେତେବେଳେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଲୋକକୁ hire କରୁଛନ୍ତି. And further, when they buy a bigger store, they make sitting arrangements for the customer. ସେତେବେଳେ ବଡ shop କରିବେ ସେତେବେଳେ sitting arrangement ପାଇଁ କି customer ପାଇଁ ରଖିବ. So say accordingly they hire two more people to serve the customers. What we see in that every task is divided to avoid chaos and frictions so that the bakery runs smoothly. କୋଉ ହିସାବରେ ଗୋଟେ ବେକରୀ ସପ୍ ଟା ଠିକ ରେ ସ୍ମୁଥ ରେ ଚାଲି ପାରିବ according to the diversification of work and the specialization of work. So these are the two criteria in complex societies. ଗୋଟେ ହଉଛି strata, ଗୋଟେ ହଉଛି diversification and specialization of tasks. Next one is what are the dimensions of roles? Dimensions of roles कौन? First, multiple roles कौन? Our role set कौन? What is multiple role? What is the role set? According to sociologist R.K. Morton, Robert K. Morton, who emphasized on the need of distinguish between the concept of multiple roles and role set. In contrast to Linton's theory that each status has a single associated role, contrast कले लिंटन का थ्योरी को जे प्रत्येक स्टेटस रे गोटे सिंगल और एसोसिएटेड रोल थाए. मॉर्टन आर्ग्यूज दैट ईच स्टेटस हैज एन आरी ऑफ रोल्स. प्रत्येक स्टेटस रे गोटे आरी ऑफ रोल्स है ना कि गोटे रोल थाए. So this is what Morton calls role set, जहाँ को से कहते role set. It is a complement of role relationships in which persons are involved by virtue of occupying a particular status. Each status has its own role set. प्रत्येक status रे गोटे निर्दिष्ट role set थाए. So Morton offered the example of a medical student whose status as a student is not only related to teachers but to the role of other status occupants like nurse, physician, social workers and so on. So Morton added that this kind of complex arrangement can give rise to contradictory explanations or expectations of the role partners in the role set. Second as multiple roles. Multiple roles kana? Now it refers to the roles associated with the various statuses. It refers to the roles which is associated with various statuses of an individual. The figure given below has ଯେମିତି କି ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ multiple roles ର ଯଦି example ନେବା, ଜଣେ ଗୋଟେ student ଗୋଟେ institute ର, and the similar time he is in a family he is a brother, in workplace he is a salesman, in sports team he is a sports team रे part time volunteer work भी करू. तो सेटा होची कोन multiple roles. अच्छा role set काहा को कहा गला? Multiple roles बुझी पालो. गोटे पिला विभिन्न प्रकार रो स्टेटस तार रहिछि. से जो हिसाब रे तार रोल टा प्ले करूछि according to their status. Role set काहा को कहा गला? ना a teacher in a government school. गोटे पिला गोटे टीचर अछि गवर्नमेंट स्कूल लो. तो तार रोल टा को हिसाब रे सेट कराउछि, नॉट ओनली बाय हिज स्टूडेंट. खाली स्टूडेंट रहिले रोल सेट करा जाउनी. टीचर्स यूनियन रहिछि जोठी से भी गोटे टीचर रा यूनियन रे गोटे पार्टिसिपेट करूछि. कलीग्स मानक सहित तार रिलेशनशिप रहिछि. And also some non-teaching staff भी इंस्टीट्यूट रे अछंती. Non-teaching staff को सहित भी तांकर किछि रिलेशनशिप रहुछि. So role set accordingly जे तमे गोटे इंस्टीट्यूट रे जदी टीचर हिसाब रे अछ तमरो रोल टा नॉट ओनली जस्टिफाइड अकॉर्डिंग टू योर स्टूडेंट, खाली स्टूडेंट्स को नै के होनी, कलीग्स को नै के होची, नॉन टीचिंग स्टाफ को नै के होची, एज वेल एज टीचर्स यूनियन को नै के भी जस्टिफाई करा जाय. दैट इज बिलोंगिंग टू योर रोल सेट. So what is role sign? Role signs denoted as clothing often serves as one of the most important ways to distinguish between men and women in almost all societies. But it is important to ask why we must make this distinction. It is because it works as a sign, SIGN, role sign it works as a sign to differentiate the male and female role and helps others to anticipate their roles and shape their response accordingly. ଯେମିତିକି according to Banton, role signs help in communication and control. Role signs act as a ways of communication by shaping our relationship, expectations and interactions. Role sign ଟା କଣ କରୁଛି ନା ଏଇଟା ଆମର relationship କୁ shape କରୁଛି, expectations କୁ shape କରୁଛି, as well as our interactions. They also help in controlling the behavior and checking deviations from the role, both for the individual playing the role and others are also others as well. If such distinguishing signs are totally abandoned, everyday life and activities may become very chaotic. So in our day-to-day life, costumes help in defining the role of individuals. ଆମେ କୋଉ ଭଳିଆ ଡ୍ରେସ୍ ପିନ୍ଧୁଛୁ, କଷ୍ଟ୍ୟୁମ୍ ୱିୟର କରୁଛୁ, ସେଇ ହିସାବରେ ଆମର ରୋଲ୍ ଟା ଜଣା ପଡି ଯାଉଛି. Whether it is a sales person at a supermarket, sales person costume ଦେଖିଲେ ଜଣା ପଡୁଛି, ticket collector in a train or traffic police personnel at a red light. During the traffic jam, we often anxiously look for the traffic police identified by a particular uniform and expect him or her to perform the role that is assigned to them. So similarly, in hospitals, nurse, doctors, each have their unique uniforms, unique costumes that help us in identifying them and setting our role expectations. ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ ଏଟା? So Banton identified role signs of various roles in terms of basic role, general roles and independent roles. So what are the signs for basic role? Basic role ପାଇଁ କ'ଣ signs ରହିଛି? Signs for basic roles which are largely determined by sex, age and kinship. It include names, clothes, hairstyles. ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ? Sex ପାଇଁ କି include କରୁଛି ତମର name, age ପାଇଁ clothes and ଆମେ ଏଠି generally these are included as the role signs, sorry, basic role signs. The first name of two sexes are mostly distinctive. Titles like Miss, Mrs, Mr एगुड़ा सब जेतेबेले तमरो टाइटल ले लागि जाउची, it also helps in the identification of gender, age and marital status. Gender, age and marital status, these are the signs for basic roles. तो गोटे sign बा symbol लागि गले सेटा symbolize करूची, so these are your basic roles. आमे जानिबा पचारिबा बे दरकार पडू नाही. So what are the second signs for general roles? The signs for general roles are often depend on the extent to which it is necessary to distinguish and communicate the distinctiveness and relevance of the role of a particular situation, as well as for other role relationship. The case of a policeman and his uniform discussed above are the signs of general. जेतला signs of general समस्तक पय एटा हमें देखि परजु गोटे particular situation रे policeman रो dress देखिले ही हमें जानुछु जे he is doing according to his uniform देखिले ही हमको जाना पड़ियो, and it is a general role. डॉक्टर रो uniform देखिले हमें जेंति जानि पारुतो कि तो सेही हिसाब रे एठी गोटे these are the signs for general roles which are often depend on the extent to which it is necessary to distinguish and communicate the distinctiveness of the role of a particular situation, as well as for the other role relationship. These are the signs for general roles. What are the signs for independent roles? Now, since independent roles have less implications for other roles, signs for them are limited. Signs are independent roles, have relevance only in particular context and may lose relevance in most other social situations. For outsiders, such signs often serve as prestige sign. Independent role एठी कौन कहूची ना एठी for others roles signs for them are limited. Signs for independent roles have relevance only in particular gote निर्दिष्ट context रे ଆମେ independent roles टा play करूछु and may lose by independent signs टा ଆମେ show करूछु may lose relevance in most other situation आउ किछि situation हमर से sign टा किछि valueless हो जाउछ that is denoted as your signs of independent role. So let us have a look what is role changing. Role changing कहले हमें कोन बुझुछु ना roles never remain the same. Role सब बेले एका प्रकारर नुहे and keep evolving. Individuals move from one role to another and new roles are added to the old set of roles. Individuals सब बेले गोटिए role रे will never remain the same in a particular role or gotiए role रे static रुहे नहीं. When a person moves from one role to other, it is important to become familiar with the rights and obligations of this new role. न्यू रोल पाई जो राइट्स और ओब्लिगेशंस उडा रहिछि ताकू गोटे लोक गोटे जेतले रोल चेंज करा जाउछि सो हियर सी शुड बी वेरी फैमिलियर अबाउट द राइट्स एंड obligations. This is important to note not only for the person who undergoes the role change but also for others who are associated with the person. खाली जे role change करूचे ता पाई नुहे but also the persons who are associated with that particular individual to modify their behavior and expectations as per the new role. So this is the reason why role changes are often marked by ceremonies. The first important change is that individuals in every society experience this from childhood to adulthood. If you remember in the tribal society, the Bosnian boy becomes a man when he first shoots his buck, and this is celebrated with rituals. From this point, he is also allowed to marry. Similarly, in many societies, maturity of girls is marked by the puberty rites. Puberty rites, maturity of girls, some societies, there is also the, and here she is allowed to marry. So when an individual is about to acquire the role of a wife or a husband, it is followed by a ceremony where family, friends, neighbors, and the community takes place. Ceremonies help in making the changeover a critical moment for the individual as well as the others. Similarly, when the person acquires an important position like a chairperson of an organization or prime minister or president of a country, it is marked by oath taking ceremony. So the change in role also occurs during the passage from adulthood to old age. In many societies, the elderly are relieved of their labor-intensive tasks and they assume new roles such as taking care of grandchildren. So these are the concepts of role changing. So what is role conflict and strain? Now, as a person occupies several statuses, there are multiple roles to be played. Sometimes two different statuses of an individual may demand conflicting expectations, placing the individual in a state of dilemma. In a simple example of this can be of a class monitor. As a class monitor, Ahmad is given a set of responsibilities by his class teacher. He is expected to maintain discipline in the teacher's absence and is supposed to report any disruption caused by the students. At the same time, Ahmad is also occupies the status of being a close friend to some of his classmates. Now, if one student from his close circle of friends disturbs the classroom and or becomes a bully in the teacher's absence, it may give rise to the role conflict of Ahmad. As a friend, he may be expected to ignore his behavior, while the responsible class monitor is expected to bring his unruly behavior to his teacher's notice. बुझी पारुछ एठी कोन कह जाउची जेते बेडे आमे एठी रोल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट केते बेडे देखा जाउची देखो गोटे समटाइम्स गोटे जेते बेडे तमे क्लास रो मॉनिटर तमु चूज करा जाउची सेते बेडे तमरा बिहेवियर टा जस्ट एक्सपेक्टेशन कोन रहउची ना जदी क्लास रे के टीचर्स एब्सेंस रे किछि मिसकंडक्ट बा मिसबिहेवियर करछंती डिस्टरबेंस क्रिएट होउची ताकू तमे देखिबा किंतु at the same time जदि तमरो के क्लोज फ्रेंड से समय डिस्टरबेंस क्रिएट करिछि तमे सेटारे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट क्रिएट करूछि जे तमे तार नाटा टीचर जस्टिफाई करिबो बा तमे तमर आज रेस्पॉन्सिबल क्लास मॉनिटर हिसाब रे ताको टीचर्स का सामना को नबो बा तमर क्लोज सर्कल फ्रेंड हिसाब रे तमे ताको छाडुछ एब्सेंस रे ताको इट मे गिव राइज टू द रोल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट सो सेते बेले रोल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ता क्रिएट होचे while this is an example from a classroom आज हम जोटा कहिलु गोटे classroom example देखिलु किंतु in our everyday life individuals are often confronted with the similar or such more complex dilemma everyday life रे हमें एबडा dilemma गुडा face करू we have already discussed that an individual plays multiple roles in his or her lifetime and therefore जोठी multiple roles play करूचंदी सेठी incompatibility is bound to arise sorry. A frequently cited example of role conflict is the one experienced by working women. जदि गोटे working women का बात करबी, एठी गोटे example देखा होची. In traditional societies, the culturally accepted role of women were largely related to child rearing and household chores. किंतु वर्तमान modern societies रे कौन? These roles are being challenged and women are increasingly entered into the full-time salaried employment and sharing professional workspace with men. When such social changes take place, women may experience a pull from both sides. So her commitment of her work as a professional and her commitment towards the family and children as a wife or mother, such conflicts arise when and especially because the role partners may not accept and reorient themselves to the fact that women are remaking their roles and adopting new ones. So, the role conflict while role conflict takes place between roles associated to two associated roles or two different statuses of an individual, the role strain is experienced when different responsibilities associated within a single status are incompatible. For example, ଯଦି ଆମେ example ନେବା role strain ର, Rohit has to prepare for an exam that is next day, जो exam टा तम next day अछि, but has to also represent his school in an inter school chess competition रे भी से participate करिछि represent करिवा पे on the same day. As a student, he might experience stress and anxiety because he has to perform well in both the situation. देखो दीटा situation में तुमको भला करिवा पे पड़िबा. You may take role strain. So people try to manage role conflict by role compartmentalization or separation, where they try to keep that keep what they do in one role distinct from what they do in another role and giving priority to one role over the other. Concepts of role strain and conflict are more important to understand role exit as they can also give rise to doubt about one particular role eventually lead to exit. So, my dear learners, this is all about in this unit. We have already discussed the status and role, which form important aspects of social nature. We are also discussed different conceptions, different classifications of status and role, and also how both role and status are dynamic in nature and constantly being defined and redefined by individuals and the society. So the dimensions of role such as role conflict, role exit, role change, which we experience in our own lives have also been discussed in this unit. So this is all about your status and role. I hope you all understood this concept. So if you have any doubts related to this, you can ask questions. Otherwise, we will move to our next unit. Adhar kichhi doubt achi?
Hello, ma'am.
हाँ.
Simple society role systems how complex society role system one second discuss.
Simple society role patterns or complex society. Simple society mute your mic. Simple society ର रोल सिस्टम कहूची बेस करूची तीनटा क्राइटेरिया को गोटे होची तमर कोन ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ सेक्स बेसिस रे कोन ना व्हाइल मेन असाइन्ड वर्क कोन हंटिंग हैला फूड गैदरिंग हैला मेकिंग वेपन्स हैला सेटा मेन असाइन्ड वर्क करा जाउची ଆଉ ଫିମେଲ ଆସାଇନ୍ଡ ୱାର୍କ କିଛି ରହୁଛି ଯୋଉଥିରେ କି ଫିମେଲ ମାନଙ୍କର ଟେକ୍ କେୟାର ଅଫ ଚିଲଡ୍ରେନ୍, ଗ୍ୟାଦର ଫୁଡ, ପ୍ରିପେୟାର ଫୁଡ and also keeps the residents clean. These are the simple societies रे division of roles on the basis of sex ଆମେ ଦେଖିଥିଲୁ। ଆଉ second basis କଣ ଥିଲା ନା role allocation in age basis ରେ। ଆଉ boys age basis ରେ ଆମେ କଣ ଦେଖିଲୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ boy ର maturity ଆସୁଛି when he kills his first buck and this passage is celebrated with a rituals, thereafter he is allowed to marry। ତାପରେ ତାକୁ allow କରାଉଛି marry ପାଇଁ। in case of girls she can be married when a baby, but she takes the role of a wife and married women when he is mature physically। ଯେତେବେଳେ physically mature ହଉଛି then she is enters into the role of a married woman। So these are the elderly people who are treated with respect and as experts on traditions, myths and family lineages। So ଏଠି କୁହାଯାଉଛି on the basis of ଏଠି ଆମେ ରୋଲ କେମିତି ପ୍ଲେ କରୁଛୁ ନା on the basis of role allocation is age। age ଟା define କରୁଛି ତମର male and female ଆଉ elderly। age ଟା matter କରୁଛି ତମର ଗୋଟେ ରୋଲ ଗୋଟେ assigned role play କରିବା ପାଇଁ ବୁଝି ହଉଛି। So third basis ହଉଛି ତମର kinship। kinship କଣ ନା mothers and fathers perform the important role of bringing up their children। ତା ମାନେ mothers assigned kinship patterns ବା relatives ରହୁଛନ୍ତି, fathers assigned kinship patterns ବା relatives ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ପାଇଁ ପାଉଛୁ। when the children grow up as adults they have certain mutual obligations with their parents। both ମାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ବି କଣ obligations ରହୁଛି ବା rights duties କିଛି ରହୁଛି ଆଉ ବାପାରଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ବି କିଛି duties ରହୁଛି। so marriage between men and women can be dissolved but as they rarely quarrel, divorce is rare। marriages between close relations are avoided to keep the kin ties clear। so ଏଠି ଆମେ simple societies ରେ third basis of pattern ଦେଖୁଥିଲୁ କୋଉ ହିସାବରେ ରୋଲ ଟା kinship basis ରେ। so first ହଉଛି ତମର କଣ age ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ହଉଛି ସରି sex then age then ହଉଛି kinship। ଏଟା simple society। complex ରେ ହଉଥିଲା କଣ social strata କୁ ନେଇ divide କରାହଉଛି। strata means stratification layers ଯେମିତି caste system ଇଣ୍ଡିଆର caste system ରେ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ stratified basis ଦେଖୁଛୁ। some societies are organized on the basis of rank order ରେ ଆମର strata କରାଯାଇଛି define କରାଯାଇଛି। people belonging to the same strata share the similar experience। ଯୋଉମାନେ ଏକା ପ୍ରକାରର strata ରେ ଏକା caste group ର ଦେଖିଥିବ ଏକା ପ୍ରକାରର existence ଥିବ similar existence ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ପାଇଁ ପାଉଥିଲୁ privileges and duties ସେମାନେ fulfill କରୁଥିଲେ। and ଏଠି ଆମେ ସେଇ pattern ଏଠି କରାଯାଇଛି ଯେ when the caste system in India where the person born in a particular caste is expected to adhere to the caste specific norms। ଆମେ ଯୋଉ caste ରେ ଜନ୍ମ ଗ୍ରହଣ କରୁ ସେଇ ହିସାବରେ norms, customs, occupation ଆମେ follow କରିଥାଉ and rules of interaction within the same caste ଆଉ other caste ଭିତରେ ଆମେ interaction ବି ସେଇ basis ରେ ହୋଇଥାଏ। so ଏଠି ଆମେ complex କହୁଛି generally strata ବା layer କରାଯାଉଛି hierarchy create ହେଇଯାଉଛି ଯୋଉଥିରେ କି on the basis of rank basis ରେ ଆମେ କଣ ରୋଲ ଟା assign କରୁଛି in complex societies ରେ। ଯେତେବେଳେ rank basis ରେ hierarchy basis ରେ କଲୁ second typology undoubtedly ଆସିବ diversification and specialization of rank। specialized ranks କଣ ରହିଲା specialized ranks କହିଲେ ଯୋଉମାନେ ଯୋଉ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ ଦକ୍ଷ ତାଙ୍କୁ ସେଇ ହିସାବରେ କାମ ଗୁଡା assigned କରାଗଲା। distribution of work according to the specialized skills। ତମେ ଯୋଉଥିରେ specialize ସେଇ ହିସାବରେ skill work ଗୁଡା ତମକୁ divide କରାଗଲା। so ଏଠି କଣ ଆମେ ସେମ୍ ଜିନିଷ ଦେଖୁଛୁ ଯୋଉଥିରେ କି ମାନେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ ଦିଟା ଫ୍ରେଣ୍ଡ ଗୋଟେ ବେକରୀ ସପ୍ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ସେମାନେ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ଗୋଟେ ଆକାଉଣ୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ ପୋଷ୍ଟ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ତାପରେ ତାଙ୍କର ୱାର୍କର ମାନଙ୍କୁ ଆପଏଣ୍ଟ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ତାପରେ ନିଜେ ଡିଲ୍ କରୁଛନ୍ତି କିଛି ଅଲଗା କିଛି ଅଫିସିଆଲ ବା ଅଲଗା କିଛି ଯେତେବେଳେ ନୂଆ ଆଉ କିଛି ବଢେଇବା ପାଇଁ ଚାହୁଁଛନ୍ତି ସିଟିଂ ଆରେଞ୍ଜମେଣ୍ଟ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଚାହୁଁଛନ୍ତି ସେତେବେଳେ ୱେଟର ମାନଙ୍କୁ ବି କଣ ଆସାଇନ୍ଡ ୱାର୍କ କିଛି ରିକ୍ରୁଟ କରୁଛନ୍ତି। ତାମାନେ ଆମେ ଏଠି ଗୋଟେ ଦେଖୁଛୁ ଯୋଉମାନେ ଯୋଉଥିରେ ସ୍ପେଶାଲାଇଜ ସେଇ ହିସାବରେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଆସାଇନ୍ଡ ୱାର୍କ ଗୁଡା ଡାଇଭର୍ସିଫାଇ କରାଯାଉଛି ଇନ କେସ୍ ଅଫ କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ ସୋସାଇଟି। ସୋ ସିମ୍ପଲ ସୋସାଇଟି ଯେ ସିମ୍ପଲ ଜିନିଷ ଏଜ ସେକ୍ସ ଆଉ କିନସିପ କୁ ନେଇକି ହଉଥିଲା କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ ସୋସାଇଟିରେ ଆମେ ଏଠି ଦେଖିଲୁ ସ୍ଟ୍ରାଟା ବେସିସ ରେ ଆଉ ଡାଇଭର୍ସିଫିକେସନ ଆଣ୍ଡ ସ୍ପେଶାଲାଇଜେସନ ଅଫ ଟାସ୍କ। ବୁଝିହେଲା?
yes ma'am। ମ୍ୟାମ୍ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ରହିଲା ଇଣ୍ଡିପେଣ୍ଡେଣ୍ଟ ରୋଲ ସାଇନ୍ ଟା ଟିକେ ମ୍ୟାମ୍ ୱାନ୍ ସେକେଣ୍ଡ।
ଇଣ୍ଡିପେଣ୍ଡେଣ୍ଟ
ରୋଲ ସାଇନ୍ ରୋଲ ସାଇନ୍
ରୋଲ ସାଇନ୍ रोल साइन तो बहुत इजी रोल साइन तुम क्लॉथ को देखिकी ही तुम जानी परिबो तो किए को रोल प्ले करछन साइन कॉल सिंबल डे टू डे लाइफ रे तुमरो साइन देखिले ही तुम जानी पारुछ बेसिक रोल दमति कि तुमरो क्लॉथेस हेयर स्टाइल बा साइन ऑफ जनरल रोल्स जते बडे जड़े प्ले करूची पुलिस मैन तार यूनिफॉर्म देखिले ही तुम जानुछ ताको ही रोल साइन हमें कहूछु यूनिफॉर्म बेसिस रे क्लॉथ बेसिस रे हम आइडेंटिफाई करूछु रोल साइन. So clothing often serves as one of the most important ways to distinguish between men and women in almost all societies. ସବୁ societies ର men and women ଙ୍କର assigned role cloth ଦେଖିଲେ ହିଁ ଆମେ ଜାଣିପାରୁ ଯେ କୋଉ ପ୍ରକାର work ଗୋଟେ traffic ର personal ହେଲା କି ସୁପର ମାର୍କେଟ ରେ ଗୋଟେ ସେଲ୍ସ ପର୍ସନ ର ହେଲା ଟିକେଟ କଲେକ୍ଟର ଗୋଟେ ଟ୍ରେନ ର ହେଲା ତାଙ୍କର ସବୁ ଡ୍ରେସିଂ ସେନ୍ସ ଦେଖିଲେ ଆମେ ଜାଣିପାରୁ ନର୍ସ ଡକ୍ଟର ହୁଅନ୍ତୁ ବୁଝିହଉଛି the uniform makes the clothing makes the difference that symbolize करे जे से सेई रोल टा सोसाइटी रे प्ले करे these are the role signs.
थैंक यू मैम.
अच्छा ଆଉ କିଛି ନାହିଁ ତ shall we
नो.
move to the next unit.
यस मैम.
Coming to your next unit, it's assigned as socialization. Now, status and role for a unit 12 consists of socialization. Here we will discuss on the definition of socialization. We will also identify some of the main thinkers contribute to the studies on socialization. We will also focus on distinguish the various types of socialization as well as identify the agents of socialization, how they affect your personality. So let us have our introduction part. In this unit, we will focus on the meaning and definition of socialization. Here we will discuss the different types and theories of socialization. Finally, we will end the discussion by examining the various agencies of socialization. भी देखिबा एठी. So some definitions of socialization ने first definition होची socialization refers to the process which transforms a quite helpless human infant into a self-aware, knowledgeable person who is skilled in the ways of their society's culture. एठी हमें जदि देखिबा socialization is a process that continues throughout life from birth till adulthood. Birth through adulthood पर्यंत हमें socialization process देखिया ପାଇଁ पाइथाउ. There are different phases in which the process takes place. These phases are usually spread across different age groups and have been categorized as the different types of socialization. गोटे ହେଲା primary socialization. First होची primary socialization. It is the most important feature in the process of socialization. It happens during the infancy and childhood. The primary stage basically takes shape during infancy and childhood, where basic knowledge and language or behavior is taught. This stage of socialization usually takes place within the family. During this stage, infants learn language and certain basic behavior. Primary socialization प्रथमे गोटे छुआटा language शिखुची और basic behavior which forms the family and society in which he or she lives. It is through primary socialization that the foundations for later learning are laid. As ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଛୁ primary socialization refers to the internalization of fundamental culture and ideas of a society. It shapes the norms, values and beliefs of child at a time when it has little understanding of the world and it is different and its different phenomena. And the basic socialization agent molding the child is the family. Then coming to our secondary socialization occurs once the infant passes into the childhood phase. Secondary socialization ସେତେବେଳେ start ହଉଛି ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ infant ଟା pass କରୁଛି childhood phase and continues into maturity. During this phase, more than the family, some other agents of socialization like school and friends group begin to play the role. एठी अधिक school ଆଉ friend group ର role ଟା ଅଧିକ ଏଠି ଦେଖିବା ପାଇଁ ମିଳିଥାଏ. Different kinds of social interaction through these different agents of socialization helps the child to learn the moral standards, customs and principles of their society and culture. When the child receives training in institutional or formal settings such as school, secondary socialization takes shape. School रे जेतेबेले आमे फर्स्ट एंट्री करू, there we found the phase of secondary socialization. This parallel to primary, this is parallel to primary socialization, but unlike the family setting, children in schools are trained to conform to authority. Secondary socialization is usually carried out by institutions and people in specific roles and positions. Further, it involves the acquisition of knowledge and conscious learning, and thus opens for critical reflection, while primary socialization points to the transmission of naturalized cultural patterns. So primary socialization is family, secondary socialization is importance school out friends. So let us have a look what is gender socialization. Gender socialization can be understood as the process by which different agents of socialization shape the thought of children and make them learn different gender roles. According to the World Health Organization, gender refers to the socially constructed characteristics of women and men. ଯେତେବେଳେ socially constructed characteristics କୁହାଯାଉଛି ତାକୁ କୁହାଯାଉଛି gender, ଯେତେ socially constructed characteristics in between men and women, ଯେତେବେଳେ biologically constructed characteristics between men and women କୁହାଯାଉଛି that is assigned as sex. So socially constructed characteristics of women and men such as norms, roles and relationships and between groups of women and men. Gender role refers to social roles assigned to each sex and labeled as masculine and feminine. So gender role ame generally कौन कहूची, it refers as a social role which is assigned as to each sex and labeled as masculine and feminine. Masculine माने पुरुषत्व, feminine नारीत्व. तो हमें एठी masculinity और femininity versus रे assigned roles को labeled as in the version of that is denoted as gender role. So much before children begin to know themselves as male or a female, they receive a series of clues from adults in their family and society, because male and female adults have different ways of managing infants. Infants learn quite a lot from visual and symbolic indicators. Differences in the manner of dressing, hairstyle, different cosmetic products used by men and women provide the children with indicators of variations between the male and female. Within the 2 years of age, children begin to vaguely understand what gender is. 2 वर्ष हेले छुआ जानी पारे जे से को gender रे belong करूचे. Apart from adults around them, children receive a lot of clues about gender roles and differences from television programs. Toys they play, जो खेलना रे से खेलती, with as well from their coloring and picture books. For example, a baby girl is very commonly seen playing with dolls and kitchen sets, while a baby boy would be found playing with toy cars and toy guns. So these are the gender socialization which we learned from the 2 years. We learned from the socialization process which gender we belong. I mean, धीरे धीरे जानी पारू through some clues, through some television, so also from our toys. So, however, today the definition of gender is no longer fixed within the binary of male and female, because there is a third category. एठी केवल मेल और फीमेल कैटेगरी में जस्टिफाई करूनु, there is also a third category which is often referred to as third gender. The term third gender is assigned to a person by a society or by the person her or himself when one does not want to be recognized as a male or as a female. So male or female कोउथरे भी recognized करा जाई पारे नाही, does not want to be recognized, he is considered under the third gender. In some societies where 3 or more genders are recognized, we can find the use the term third gender. This is usually associated with the gender role that a person performs, and in some societies, the gender roles are not very strictly defined. The term third gender is often used to describe defined as your third gender ଆମେ ଯୋଉ କହୁଛୁ transgender. More recently, the term third gender is associated with the term queer, wherein the person not willing to be strictly identified as male or female may be categorized as a queer person. Acha, if you gender socialization pare, again we have another patterns of socialization, that is anticipatory socialization. What is anticipatory socialization? Now, it was introduced by the sociologist R.K. Merton, Robert K. Merton in 1957. It is a process by which someone is consciously associated with future occupation. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ future role ଉପରେ ଅଧିକ consciously focus करू, future occupation, future position, future social relationship, that is denoted as anticipatory socialization. Through anticipatory socialization, people are socialized into groups to which they wish to or have to join. जोठी से wish करंती जो माने प्रत्येक लोकर गोटे फ्यूचर एस्पिरेशन, फ्यूचर ऑक्युपेशन, फ्यूचर पोजीशन ପାଇଁ गोटे consciousness थाए. Though the anticipatory socialization, people are socialized into groups to which they wish to or have to join, so that entry into that group does not seem to be very difficult. So ଆମେ the future ପାଇଁ ଆଗରୁ plan ବା preparation ହେଇ ଯାଇଥାଏ, it is not very difficult to enter into that particular group. Some people suggest that parents are the primary source of anticipatory socialization when it comes to socializing their children for future careers or social roles. For example, a child made to leave the home to stay in a boarding school with the anticipation of better socialization. एमती भी हम देखते एग्जांपल ले गोटे चाइल्ड को ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଛାଡି ଦଉ ଘରୁ ଛାଡି ବୋର୍ଡିଂ ସ୍କୁଲ ଦେଇ ଦଉ with the anticipation of better socialization, future socialization को आखि आगे रखी parents ଯେତେବେଳେ boarding school को ଛାଡନ୍ତି, that is an example of anticipatory socialization. So what is re-socialization? Now, re-socialization refers to the process of leaving certain behavior patterns. किसी behavior patterns को हमें छाड़ी दउछु and roles in order to adopt some new roles. किसी नुआ role को adhere करूछु. New roles as part of one's evolution in life. Re-socialization occurs when there is a major transformation in the social role of a person. ଯେତେବେଳେ social role of a person ने major transformation देखा दिए ताको मैं कहूछु re-socialization. It occurs throughout life where individuals experience radical breakthroughs from their past experiences and learn new manners and values which are starkly different from that they had learned previously. जहाँ से माने आगुरु शिखितांदी ताको छाड़ी की गोटे नुआ मैनर नुआ वैल्यूज को जेतेबेले ग्रहण करू. Sociologists like Irving Goffman analyzed re-socialization in mental asylum. Mental asylum रो से re-socialization टाको analyze करिसेंती Goffman. According to him, mental asylum is a total institution in which almost every aspect of residents' life was controlled by the institution in order to serve the goal of institution. For example, the institution demands that the inmate obeys the rules and regulations even if it is not very useful for the person. Another common example is that the girl who is about to get married, married girl is often re-socialized. से गोटे ये कल्चर वास्ता है गोटे ये कुछ छाड़ी की पुणे अगेन गोटे नुआ ताकू अडॉप्ट करूचे, then it is a better example of re-socialization by suggestions and advice from her parents on different matters, so that after marriage it is easier for her to adjust in her husband's home with her in-laws. So it is a re-socialization. Again, we will focus on adult socialization. Adult socialization kona? Now it takes place in adulthood when individuals adopt to new roles such as that of a husband, wife, or an employee. This is related to their needs and wants. People continue to learn values and behavior patterns throughout life. Socialization does not have any fixed time period. लर्न एटा गोटे लर्निंग प्रोसेस आमे कहलु आ एटा गोटे कंटीन्यूअस प्रोसेस आर गोटे फिक्स टाइम नै जे मु एई समय रे सिखिबी बुझि होछि इट इज थ्रू आउट कंटीन्यूअस लाइफ जे पर्यंत जन्म रु मृत्यु पर्यंत प्रोसेस टा को आमे कहउछु सोशलाइजेशन प्रोसेस. It begins at birth and continues till old age. In a traditional societies, the older people had a significant influence in important matters related to the family. Both male and female adults had exerted their influence with increasing age. In modern times, we can find this elderly influence decreasing in some families. However, that is not to say that older people have completely lost their authority in modern day families. Even today, their opinion are sought for certain important matters. Like the younger generation, it continues to be socialized by their adults. Similarly, the older generation also gets socialized by their younger generation through different experiences. Apart from the family, adult socialization continues to take place through the other agents of family को छाड़ देले भी और भी adult socialization अलग place पे भी करा जाए. For example, workplace, social groups, senior citizens forum, clubs for recreation, and some religious institutions also. So let us have theories of socialization. First theory given by Mead and his George Herbert Mead, and his theory tankara hochi theory of the development of self. According to the American sociologist George Herbert Mead in 1972, young children begin to develop as social beings by imitating the actions of those nearby them. Acha. ଯେତେବେଳେ ହର୍ବର୍ଟ ମିଡ୍ କଣ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଯେତେବେଳେ young children begin to develop as a social being ସେ କଣ କରେ imitate କରେ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ଅନୁକରଣ କରେ ତା ପାଖରେ ଥିବା ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ସେ ଅନୁକରଣ କରେ ଗୋଟେ ଛୁଆଟେ. By doing so, the child is able to develop the ability. से धीरे धीरे तार निजर ability टा से हिसाब रे develop करे to understand the actions of the persons with whom he is interacting. जहाँ सहित से interact करूची. Play is one of the ways by which children often imitate what adults do. खेल खेल रे से first सेटा सीखे imitate करे adult माने कौन करनी. The play stage रे begins around the third year, during which the child begins to adopt different roles of adults in her or his life. Need refers to these others as significant others. जेतले अलगा लोकन को आमे गोटे छुआटा अलगा रोल कर एटा को प्ले करूची बा प्ले स्टेज रे ताको सिखुची इमिटेट करूची से जो अदर्स रोल टाको नीड जस्टिफाई करूचंती एज सिग्निफिकेंट अदर्स. Children's play gradually develops from simple imitation to the difficult games, where a child of 4 or 5 years old will enact the role of an adult. For example, children are often found imitating the classroom situation. Somebody classroom situation को imitate करंती, where one becomes a teacher and the other becomes a student, and they enact the classroom teaching session. Most children locally refers to this play as teacher खेली थांती पिला माने देखिबो. Another similar act of play is that doctor patient, where children imitate the role of a doctor, nurse, and patient and try to enact a situation where the patient goes to the doctor for treatment. So this is denoted as significant others. So Mead refers to this act of imitation as taking the role of the other. This stage, being a complex one, is known as the game stage. Game stage where children begin to attain maturity and develop a sense of self and others. Children begin to understand themselves as me by looking at themselves through other people's views and opinions about them. The me is a social self, while the I is the response to that me. So in simple words, I comprises the response to the child to the action of others, and me is the organized set of reactions to others that the child takes on. I और me dita stage dita देखिया पाई मिले game stage रे. मी कहूची कौन मी कहा को कह जाउची ना इट इज ऑर्गेनाइज्ड सेट ऑफ रिएक्शंस ऑफ अदर्स मु जो एटा करूची अदर्स मानक रिएक्शन कौन से हिसाब रे रहिची मो प्रति मु जेतबे गेम स्टेज रे गोटे रोल टे एनैक्ट करूची आई कहा को कह जाउची ना इट कंप्राइजेस द रेस्पॉन्स ऑफ द चाइल्ड टू द एक्शन ऑफ अदर्स आउ माने अलगा मानकर अदर्स मानकर एक्शन टाको जेतबेले प्ले करूचे आई कंप्राइजेस द रेस्पॉन्स ऑफ द चाइल्ड रो रेस्पॉन्स टा जेतबेले देखा दउचे टू द एक्शन ऑफ अदर्स जेतबेले चाइल्ड रो रेस्पॉन्स टा तर अलगा मानक एक्शन प्ले करूचे कोन सेटा को कहउचे आई आउ जस्ट तर अपोजिट होची कोन ना अदर्स कर रिएक्शन टा कोन जेतबेले गोटे चाइल्ड से रोल टा प्ले करूचे ताको होची मी. So this is found in game stage. Another stage of development occurs around the age of 8 or 9 age range. At this stage, children are able to function as members of a group and also understand their role, understand their role as a member of that group. Mead introduces the concept of generalized other and significant other. Generalized other can be understood as those rules and values of the culture of a particular group in which the child is engaged. By understanding the generalized other, the child is able to understand what kind of manners is expected as well as valued in any social setting. Significant other consists of those persons who are of importance in the child's life and affect her his understanding of self along with the child's emotions and behavior. So Mead was one of the first thinkers to understand the role of significant other in the development of self. According to him, socialization depends upon the child's understanding of others' views as important in his or her life. So this is the theory of Mead's theory. Let us have a look on Pule's theory, and his concept is given as looking glass cell. Charles Horton Pule, the American sociologist, is best known for his concept of looking glass cell. Children develop the concept of their selves with the help of others around them. सबुबेले पिला माने अन्य मानकर हेल्प नै कि तांकर सेल्फ रे डेवलपमेंट करिथांते. He or she forms an idea about oneself based on the opinion of others about him or her. The kind of social self that develops out of imagination of how one appears to the other person and the kind of feeling about oneself can be referred to as looking glass self. The kind of social self that develops out of imagination of how one appears to the other person. ମୁଁ ଅଲଗା ମାନଙ୍କ ଇଏରେ କେମିତି ଦେଖା ଯାଉଛି to the other person and the kind of feeling about oneself can be referred to as looking glass self. ତମେ ନିଜକୁ ଦେଖିବା ଦର୍ପଣରେ ଆମେ ଯଦି କହୁଛୁ looking glass self and reflected that self ତମର ପ୍ରତିବିମ୍ବଟା ଗୋଟେ ଦର୍ପଣ ଆଗରେ ଦେଖା ଯାଉଛି କି ନାହିଁ ସେଇ ଭଳିଆ and look reflected that self. So the knowledge about ourselves develops in us through the opinions and reactions of others around us. The social looking glass self consists of these other people through whom we build an image of ourselves. This knowledge about oneself is first obtained from the parents and later it is reformed by the judgment of others. प्रथम parents ମାନଙ୍କ ଦ୍ୱାରା reflect କରାଯାଏ ତାପରେ ଆମେ ଧୀରେ ଧୀରେ ଅଲଗା ମାନଙ୍କ ଠାରୁ ବି ଏଟା judgment ନିଆଯାଏ. The way in which the mirror helps us, जो हिसाब रे हमको mirror help करे to form an opinion about ourselves through the clothing we put on. ଆମେ को dress पिन्चो mirror देखिକି ହିଁ ଜାଣୁଛୁ କେମିତି ଲାଗୁଛୁ. Our face, our figure, our physique. In the similar manner, we try to imagine how in another person's mind we might to appear. ଆମେ ଅଲଗା ଲୋକର ମାଇଣ୍ଡ ରେ କେମିତି ଦେଖା ଯାଉଥିବୁ ସେଇ ହିସାବରେ ହିଁ ଆମେ ନିଜକୁ justify କରୁ through our behaviors, manners and so on. As a result, in our imagination, we form an opinion about ourselves through the other person's perceptions and may get positively and negatively affected by it. For example, a child who is in the mood to create some mischief might want to lie to his or her parents. However, before creating the mischief, the child might reflect over and think that if his lie is caught, that will have a bad impression on his or her parents about him or her. ତା ଉପରେ ଗୋଟେ bad impression parents ଙ୍କର ଆସିବ. So according to Kule, there are three main features that make us the idea of the self. The first होची कौन? Now, the first consists of our imagination of how we appear to the other person. Our imagination ame other mananka agare kemiti dekha jauchu. Second feature consists of our imagination of the judgment that other persons make by our appearances. Third feature consists of some feeling of self-importance, shame, or self-doubt based on the imaginations of other persons, judgment about our appearances. Other person kara judgment about our appearances. So these are the Kule's theory, looking glass self. Next theory, Freud, Sigmund Freud, and his theory is known as psychoanalytic theory. The Austrian neurologist and the father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, believes socialization demands that individual must do away with their selfish wants for the benefit of the larger society. According to him, socialization is a process that directs one's craving and instincts in ways that are culturally accepted by the society. He has explained the process of socialization through three distinguishable parts of personality, that is id, ego and superego. एटी फ्रूट तीन टा जिंस कहते गोटे हूँ ईड गोटे है इगो आ गोटे हूँ सुपर इगो. ईड कौन ना ईड कंसिस्ट ऑफ ऑल काइंड्स ऑफ बेसिक इंपल्सेस. इट इज अनकॉन्शियस, selfish and impulsive and illogical part of the personality that always tries to increase the feeling of pleasure by avoiding the pain. The id tries to make a person work towards achieving the selfish desire by not paying any heed or to other individuals or social rules and standards. For example, a child craving for a second helping of dessert screamed constantly until she was given another serving. Then coming to ego, ego is the reference between id and superego. It tries to maintain the balance between the id one basic impulse, and superego, which is norms of the society. The ego tries to regulate our desires and cravings and helps us to obey the norms of the society. As a reference, the ego tries to control our impulses and according to the norm, behave according to the norms of the society. Superego na superego refers to the principles, rules and ethics that one learns through the process of socialization. Superego comprises of the norms of a society which are internalized through the socialization. The superego is the inner voice, or we can say conscience of an individual, and in that inner voice the hopes, beliefs and guidelines of the society are organized. For example, ଯଦି ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା Ruchi was eager to steal some grocery from the store without without anyone noticing her. Ei notice kariya agur se kichi steal ba chori kariba pai ki grocery shop ru gala, but because she knew that stealing is not the right thing to do, so she did not steal, even though she would have never got caught. The id and the superego are always opposed to each other because neither it is always possible to fulfill all our wishes and demands, nor is it easy to keep ourselves completely away from our cravings. So this is the called as superego. So coming to the essence of socialization, the process of socialization is not just limited to the family. Khali family bhitare hi socialization process ta rahi jayeni. It consists of a range of groups and institutions through which people learn the culture of their society. As already mentioned, the family is the primary agent of socialization, while some of the important secondary agents of socialization includes the peer group, school and mass media. So first we will discuss on family. How family is the primary socialization. Parents along with the family are the most important agents of socialization. Within the family, it is the mother who first begins to socialize the child. Socialization in basic values such as love and affection, manners and etiquettes are first taught in the family. In a joint family, family structure, apart from the parents, uncles, aunts, grandparents also plays important roles to socialize the children. Children learn their language and develop their speaking abilities in the family, regional and class differences of the family, and which one is born affects the socialization pattern in different ways, as a result of which children from different cultural backgrounds grow up with different values, attitudes, and beliefs. The situation within the family, whether affectionate or distraught, will affect the growth of the child accordingly. जो भलिया family टा ହେଇଥିବା affectionate ହେଲେ affectionate values ବା norms ଗୁଡା ଶିଖିଥାଏ, ଆଉ ଯଦି disturbed family ହେଇଥିବ ସେଇ ହିସାବରେ ହିଁ child ର growth ଟା ହେଇଥାଏ family. Second one is peer group. Peer group where usually consists of friend group, or we can say friends who are of the same age group. They share the mutual sense of understanding and cooperation with each other, and also consider one of them as equal. Initially, peer groups are formed in the neighborhood or the housing community where the children live. When children are young, they usually begin by making friends with children of similar gender. As a result, peer groups exerts a significant influence on gender socialization. Once children enters the school, their peer groups becomes diverse. Children who become a part of peer group are usually seen spending more time with their friends than with family members. The influence of peer group continues throughout life, from the neighborhood to educational institutions to workplace. Next one is school. The school is known to be the first formal agent of socialization, which shapes the ideas and attitudes of a child. Children learn to maintain certain decorum in the class. They learn and to obey the rules of discipline in the school and be diligent to the learning lessons that are taught in the class. The children are expected to listen to their teachers and accept their authority. At times, teachers' reactions to have positive or negative implications on the children. The school is not only responsible for formally training the child in reading and writing, but it also helps to develop the critical thinking abilities. Broadly speaking, the school helps in the overall development of the child and in diffusion of culture in the society. The role of teacher becomes very important within such a setting. Overall, the role of school can be attributed as equally important with respect to the family when it comes to socialization of the children. ତାପରେ ଆସୁଛି ତମର mass media. Mass media includes various agents of communication, for instance, radio, TV, newspaper, magazines, media portals, and websites, and the like. So, children are provided with variety of new learning opportunities which broaden the range of events child's experience. As a consequence, it is witnessed that socialization is no longer primarily or secondarily dependent on the influence of family, peers, and other such agencies. So ଏଠି ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଛୁ କଣ generally we learn that over the years television has become the greatest source of influence, especially for children when compared to the other tools of communication. There are different kinds of programs that are available on the television, ranging from serials, movies, cartoons, news, music, fashion, food, history, and geography, belonging to different age groups. So television programs for children, especially cartoons, portray high level of violent acts and episodes in different types. So, however, it also suggests that playing pro-social characters in non-violent video games can lead to the significant decrease in hurtful behavior and increase in helpful behavior. Hence, the media plays a very important role in the process of socialization by molding our understanding of the world around us. So, in this unit, we have already discussed the various dimensions of socialization. We began by understanding the meaning and nature of socialization, which also included some definitions of socialization. We also learned about various types of socialization, as well as we move to the different to study some of the most important theories of socialization, and also we discussed many agents of socialization and how each one of them plays an important role in the process of socialization. प्रत्येक जिनस socialization रे केमिति हमको हेल्प करूचे and how the agencies are playing an important role in the process of socialization. These are the things in your unit 12. I have already discussed these things. I hope you all understand. Or if you have any doubts, you can ask the question. If doubt जदि अच्छे आदरे कुछ
Hello, ma'am. Resocialization টা
हाँ
one second discussion. Resocialize.
ରିସୋସିଆଲାଇଜେସନ ଟା ପୁରା ହେଇଛି ରିସୋସିଆଲାଇଜେସନ କହୁଛି ଗିଭିଂ ଅଫ୍ ୟୋର କଣ ପ୍ରାୟର ସୋସିଆଲାଇଜେସନ ବା ଫାଷ୍ଟ ସୋସିଆଲାଇଜେସନ ଯାହା ଥିଲା ତାକୁ ତମେ ଛାଡୁଛ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ନୂଆ ସୋସିଆଲାଇଜେସନ କୁ adhere କରୁଛ ମାନେ ରିସୋସିଆଲାଇଜେସନ refers to the process of leaving certain behavior କିଛି behavior କୁ ତମେ ଛାଡୁଛ କିଛି behavior pattern and roles in order to adopt new ones କଣ ପାଇଁ ନା କିଛି ନୂଆ roles ତମେ adopt କରୁଛ society ରେ as parts of one's evolution in life. Resocialization occurs when there is a major transformation in the social role of a person. ଯେତେବେଳେ social role of a person ରେ transformation ଆସୁଛି it occurs throughout the life. ଯେମିତି ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ example ନେଇଥିଲୁ when a girl who is about to get married is often resocialization ତାକୁ ଆମେ କହିବା resocialized by the suggestions କେତେବେଳେ resocialized ହଉଛି by the taking the suggestions and advice from her parents on different matters so that after marriage it is very easier for her to adjust in her husband's home or with her in-laws तो से adjust କରିବା ପାଇଁ କି जो advice ଆଉ କଣ suggestions गुड़ा before marriage नउची तो ସେଇ ଜିନିଷଟାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ କଣ resocialization refers leaving certain behavior patterns and adopting the roles of it adopt the new roles on the part of the evolution of life. It's called resocialization.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. American
अच्छा आओ कि
socialization. American socialization.
anticipatory
Aye. Yes.
anticipatory socialization not American. अच्छा anticipatory socialization it is a process by which someone is consciously socialized for future occupations ଯେତେବେଳେ future occupations future positions and social relationship ପାଇଁ ଆମେ consciously ଚେଷ୍ଟା କରୁ ସେଇ ଜିନିଷଟାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ anticipatory socialization. Through the anticipatory socialization people are socialized into groups to which they wish to ଓ ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ ସେମାନେ ରହିବା ପାଇଁ ଚାହୁଁଛନ୍ତି or have to join କୋ ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ ସେମାନେ join କରିବେ so that entry into that particular group does not seem to be difficult ଆମେ ଏଠି ଗୋଟେ example ନେଇଥିଲୁ ଯେମିତି a child made to leave the home to stay in a boarding school with the anticipation of better socialization ତାମାନେ better socialization ପାଇଁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ child କୁ ତାର parents ମାନେ ଛାଡୁଛନ୍ତି boarding school ରେ that is denoted as anticipatory socialization. Anticipatory socialization ରେ ତାମାନେ ଆମେ continue it is a process ଆମେ generally ଜାଣିଲୁ by which someone is consciously socialized for future occupations for future positions and for future social relationships ନିଜକୁ future କୁ ଆଖି ଆଗରେ ରଖିକି ଯେତେବେଳେ ଜଣେ prepare ହଉଛି that is denoted as your anticipatory socialization. ବୁଝିପାରିଲ
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
ଆଉ କିଛି ଡାଉଟ୍ ନାହିଁ
No, ma'am.
okay. So right now I am wind up the session in our next class we will discuss on unit 13 and unit 14 of BSOC 101.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello. Hello, Prashant.
Kọ́.
ଟିକେ ମୁଁ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି କଣ୍ଟାକ୍ଟ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଚାହୁଁଛି କିଛି ପଚାରିବାକୁ ଚାହୁଁଛି ଟିକେ ନମ୍ବର ଟିକେ ଚାହୁଁଛି ପ୍ଲିଜ୍ ଦେବ
ନମ୍ବରଟା ଲେଖିନିଅ 9777
9377
9777 104461
100
9777 104461
4461 ମୁଁ ଏବେ କଲ୍ କରିବି ତ ଏବେ
ହଁ ଏବେ